Should we continue? Just
Yes, Prof.
62 people.
Yes,
63
Prof. We
now.
can continue. Yes, the rest can join us. Okay, Prof, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, Prof.
So welcome to this afternoon session. We looked at criteria for selecting pesticides that we should use. Let's look at this now. So, you know, because like I told you, we're classifying pesticides as belonging to hazardous chemicals now, not waste. We can still look at, like we have in waste management hierarchy, the preference should be that now that we know the environmental risk associated with use of pesticides, we should choose not to use pesticides. But dare say that is near impossible. But then there's this integrated pest management system that has taken hold in many parts of the world. Here in Nigeria, it's only growing. Now, IPM is a mix of farmer-driven initiatives to manage pests on the farm all the way to harvest period and storage with the ecology in mind, so that you used ecologically based pest control practices, and the aim being to reduce reliance on synthetic chemical pesticides, which, like I said, we classify as being hazardous. So this requires managing pests to keep them below the economically damaging levels, rather than seeking to eradicate them. I guess you could say that even these pests were created by God. They didn't just come from nowhere. One may say they deserve to also share the planet with us. So long as they are not a threat to us, ordinarily, if they were not a threat to our economic well-being, we wouldn't bother with them. It's because they are a threat to our economic well-being that we consider them to be pests. So if you find a way of managing the pests so that you can keep them below economically damaging levels, then you are good to go, rather than seeking to eradicate them completely, because that has its own downside as well. But this has led to the integration of multiple methods of pest control, relying to the extent possible on non-chemical alternatives, to keep pest populations low. So it will involve selecting and applying pesticides where they have to be used, not all the time, and also in a way that minimizes adverse effects on beneficial organisms, effects on humans, and the rest of the environment. It's a methodical approach that requires careful planning and careful thought. Okay. It is for this reason that If you have an agricultural project that is to be financed by the World Bank, for example, where significant pest management issues will come on board, or any project contemplating activities that they lead to the use of pesticides, then there should be a pest management plan that shows clearly how you are going to manage the pests without causing damage to the environment. In other words, the idea being that we should seek to minimize as much as possible the quantity of pesticides we introduce into our environment. So integrated pest management is what I think all of us should be thinking of when we're thinking about environmental sustainability, especially in agriculture. Now, hitherto, up to now, we've been talking about introducing materials into the environment that are not supposed to be there, or that could be there but should not be at levels that will cause damage to the environment. In other words, we'll be talking about things that have to do with environmental pollution. If we look back, this is all what we've been discussing largely in different forms. So we look in summary at how we should prevent pollution or how we should control it. So we look at pollution control as the limitation or eradication of the release of harmful substances into the environment. And this would include pesticides as well. And so it's pollutant control will only tackle waste and emission released by human activity rather than emissions from natural sources. The bottom line being that it's what we humans are creating that we can control. What is natural, we have very limited control upon it. We can anticipate and prepare for it. But then what is due to us as humans, we can control that. While pollution prevention implies eliminating or reducing the amount of potentially harmful substances at their sources prior to generation, or treatment of those substances off-site, or off-site recycling or disposal. So it's a change. Remember, we looked at the hierarchy. We looked at the 7 R's. And we need to fit this in our prevention and control system. Pollution prevention emphasizes preventing or minimizing pollution rather than controlling it once it is generated. So there are 2 things: control and prevention. But in the 2 areas, human intervention is very important. And that is where policy, legislation, regulation becomes important. For example, we can regulate emissions released from factories. We can control waste generation by policies insisting on new technologies in process manufacturing and all of that. Okay. And so in all of this, like I said, human intervention becomes important. We'll now look at some of the simple ways we can go about reducing pollution. Just give me a moment. Sorry. Some of these things are things you have heard before, but since we are summarizing, I thought we should reflect on them. We should reflect on them for a while. And I said this is the rethink level in the waste management hierarchy. We should rethink the raw materials that we put into manufacturing. So we switch to less hazardous materials. If we're using organic solvents, then we should stick to use organic solvents that are less hazardous. And if it is possible to eliminate the use of solvents completely, we should do that. I told you about mechanical processes and so on. Of course, process modification, you can change the entire production process with a mind to improve efficiency in energy use and also reduce the amount of toxic substances that you use at the level of input, which will also necessarily reduce the toxic substances that will be part of your output. Sometimes you need to use equipment upgrade, and this will come with process modification. Initially, many companies resist, but because of the initial investment in terms of changing equipment. And that is why I think in another course you will come across this. Part of one aspect of environmental law is for compliance, to encourage people to comply. You can think of tax credit for people who are, or companies that are prepared to make changes so that their emissions will be less harmful to the environment. You give them tax credits so to encourage them to change their equipment so that they do better. Again, changing equipment will also change the type or quantity of raw materials they use, which will lead to production of less waste. Again, we can think of product redesign. This will also reduce certain raw materials that you put in to make the product. For example, here in Nigeria, the use of polythene making shopping bags is the in thing. If you go to every grocery store, the packaging is this common polythene bags that people call leather. Okay, we can choose to drop that and start using cellulosic material so that we can use paper for our shopping bags or packaging materials. That will have its own challenge, but we do know that between the polythene material and paper material, paper will be preferable because of its environment friendliness. You can recycle that as well, better than you can do with the polythene stuff and so on. Of course, you can derive your paper from renewable resources as well. And at the personal level, I don't know how feasible many of us in this class we take this. You should drive your car less to reduce exhaust from vehicles contributing to air pollution. But then if you are using an electric car, you have already eliminated this aspect. So you may choose to move from this our petrol car to electric cars, or better, I mean, not better still. Alternatively, you can use the natural gas based fueling of your cars and so on. It will help. Many of us are familiar with cars with bad rings. That's as they are moving the whole place, a whole wake of smoke, big black smoke is following. So if you keep your car in good state of repair, then what you give out will be less. Underinflated tires have been shown to lower gas mileage, particularly at lower speed. So you should check your tire pressures monthly to be sure that you are not contributing to this challenge. Turn off your engine if you are not in motion. Somebody will tell me easier said than done, because if you get into peak traffic, what do you do? Naturally, you let the engine idle so that when the time comes, you are able to move. The studies have shown that idling engines create hotspots of air pollution, and this is more so in bigger cities. We may not notice that here in Nigeria in many places, but places like Lagos, Port Harcourt, then Kano, that may be the case. We have done some studies on the presence of the levels of SOx and NOx in Nigerian cities. You find that the hotspots are usually at road intersections, what you call roundabouts, where sometimes traffic is held up. You find that those areas, the levels of these air pollutants are usually in higher concentration than elsewhere. These are things that at the personal level we can try to do. Don't burn your burn your garbage. This is another one hard to play because many people, this is the easiest way they get rid of their garbage. But if we start these practices on a small scale, gradually it picks up. We shall all be better for it. Okay. We are familiar with smoke that comes up from refuse dumps and all of that. Sometimes this contains toxins like dioxins and so on. But also because of the particulates that are in the smoke, people with asthma tend to be vulnerable in such areas. Okay. Plant and care for trees. Trees filter pollutants and absorb carbon dioxide. Trees also release oxygen into the atmosphere and help to cool our surroundings. Many of you may have heard this preaching over and over and over again. So I've said it, switch to electric appliances, use less energy. The bottom line is we should all become champions for clean air and by extension for a more resilient environment. I want to take us through the Nigerian situation a little bit. Then we'll continue tomorrow with the other aspects. The information you have here dates back to 2018. I believe there's a more recent report. Sorry that I didn't try to update this, but I do know that there's a more recent report on this. Yeah, but this is just indicative that Nigeria's total greenhouse gas emissions were like 336 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Remember that we use carbon dioxide as our unit for comparing other gases in terms of their global warming potential. This represented like 1% of global emissions. Some may say that's insignificant. Others will say for a single country, especially a developing country like Nigeria, that is truly significant. This meant that emissions per person per year were less than 2 tons compared to the global average of over 6 tons. But again, for a country that is not as industrialized as those industrialized countries that are our major problem, so to speak, you will still think that this is on the high side. And the greenhouse gases were mainly carbon dioxide, methane, which are generated from our oil and gas industry, land use change, forestry, agriculture, and fugitive emissions from small-scale industries that use fossil fuels and so on and so forth. So it goes on to contribute. Now, we all know that Nigeria's economy is very dependent on oil production. So it may be hard for our country to reach the target of net zero emissions by 2060 as the world expects. But we'll keep trying. We shall look at some of the initiatives the government is taking to get to that level. Now, talking about climate change, there are evidence that point to extreme weather events and changes in the climate system of Nigeria. I'm sure, I dare say, all of us in this class now, in your ordinary conversations, you probably would have made comments about climate change and what it is doing to Nigeria based on our simple observations, not methodical investigations, but simple observations and based on what is happening elsewhere in the world. Many of us are quite familiar with this, and we tend to agree generally that climate change is affecting Nigeria. For those who live in areas like Maiduguri and Sokoto, temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius are not uncommon anymore. Okay. In the past, this has been on record between 2014, 2018. Areas like Medjugorje and Guru recorded temperatures as high as 44.5 degrees Celsius, thereabout. These were the two locations identified to have recorded the highest number of days with daytime temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius. That is greater than 70 days. And I would like to believe through experience that this is also a challenge with us. There was also a case of heat waves in Lagos, described as one of the most severe heat waves way back in 2016. Today, based on what you hear on the TV or radio every morning, based on the meteorological service in Nigeria, we are aware that there are parts of the country that record high temperatures on a daily basis, and this keeps going on. So naturally, we know that the climate change is affecting Nigeria, whether in the north central, southeast, or south. It has become a familiar and recurring thing. We've left here for you links that you will follow when you receive this to take your time and again look at these things in greater detail. The loss of ecosystems is also a common feature. For many of us, if you travel around Nigeria, for as old as I am, traveling across Nigeria, I keep seeing things changing visibly under my nose, and I'm not really surprised. Okay. Those who are familiar with the Lake Chad area will tell you more about how much change that has come. I will advise you to get online, get on the net and look up a history of the Lake Chad, and you'll be surprised at how things have changed. Like some more than 40 years ago, the Lake Chad covered an area of over 40,000 square kilometers. Now we're talking about a mere 1,300 kilometers, square kilometers. That could even be less now. The lake is literally drying up. Very strange, we will say, because in some parts we're worried about flooding. In some parts of the world, even here in Nigeria, we're worried about drought. And it's this irregular temperature regimes, irregular climate regimes that are causing some of these things and it's becoming a problem. Now, you are familiar with what is going on, particularly in the middle belt of Nigeria, people using firewood for cooking, which has led to depletion of our forests, whatever forest that we had in the middle belt area of Nigeria. These trees are felled to make charcoal. I think in this class, or maybe the other class, somebody is going to do his or her thesis on this subject. How felling of trees for charcoal is decimating the Guinea Savannah region of Nigeria. Similarly, the forest around Oyo, which used to be thick, has been reduced to grassland largely, again, because of uncontrolled logging. For those who live in Benue here, I think if you live in Makudi daily, you see trucks passing through Makudi, going up north with loads and loads of timber. And that's what is happening. In the southeastern part of the country, gully erosion has devastated many settlement areas and farmland. This is a long-standing challenge in the southeast, and people from that region know better what we are talking about. These are some of the things that are causing social dislocations and increasing poverty levels in our populations. Another thing to look at is the floods, which have become more frequent. If we go back to the one that happened in August of 2012, and thereafter, subsequent years, this has repeated itself. Kogi and Benue suffered very severely in that 2012. We here in Makudi, we know what we went through. But several other states across the country suffered floods. And these are familiar features now in Nigeria that all of us in this class, I'll be surprised if anyone would say they are not familiar with. Okay. The sea level is rising. You need to talk to people in the Lagos area, Victoria Island. They will tell you what is happening in that region. We will talk to our brothers and sisters in the Niger Delta area. They will also tell you what they are going through. Apart from extreme oil pollution events, flooding is also part of the problem. If we go up north, we talked about this earlier. We used to call it a desert encroachment. This is still continuing. I'm supposed to be part of a group call. I've been avoiding them. They're still calling me. We're planning. I don't know how I'm going to stop there. Yeah, just give me a moment. Let me respond quickly and um, tell them what I'm doing. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, any comments so far? The issue of some of the contemporary issues that we have talked about so far. I see no audio, no sound. Is that still true? Oh, this is oh, no. Okay, sorry, gentlemen and ladies. Maybe I should switch off completely. Yeah, I'm seeing some comments. Uh, Somebody asked, we say we shouldn't burn our garbage. What should we do? What should be the best and quick measure to remove residual effect of herbicide from soil to avoid negative effects? Should be the best. Okay. Georgia, can you say how do you use plastic and nylon for compost? You can't use nylon and plastic for compost at all. That is why I told you that if your waste is more of organic matter, agricultural waste, then you are lucky that you can use for composting. There's no way you can use plastic or nylon for compost. It's not possible. Yeah, the household garbage, again, you find that household garbage, a good chunk of it may be leftover food, material, uh, peelings, and all of that. Organic, the decomposable material. You can use that, can take it to and create a compost heap at home. Eventually, you can use the compost in your garden. So plastic and nylon can be recycled, like Weshima Timothy has said. Uh, Not everything should be used. Make use of what applies. Yeah, that's a good one. Uh, it's a serious one. About what should be the best and quick measure to remove residual effect of herbicide? Now, for herbicides or pesticides generally, minimal use is what is recommended because some of these have their what we call half-lives in the environment. They will degrade with time. So it's excessive use, uncontrolled use, I usually call it abuse, that tends to leave residues that, remember we talked about the assimilative capacity of an environmental medium. Here we'll be thinking more about soils. So what is the assimilative capacity of where you are you are spraying the herbicide? If within a short time it degrades and uh, gets to level that is not harmful, you don't have a challenge. So sometimes we apply herbicide when we should simply just weed because the area you're applying is small and weeding will not take too much labor, you know. But remember, I said integrated pest management practices will be the best so that you use chemicals only when you need them. Okay. Somebody says reuse it to make compost manure. Yeah, about organic waste. Thank you for your contributions. So most farmers use pesticides to preserve food products for store process. How safe is it? It is not. Francis Utimbi. I'm sure you have read in the papers here and now and here, there and people dying because they consume beans that were preserved with or tapia. So it's not safe. That's why Professor Namonu in his inaugural lecture said eating a little weevils will not hurt you. So if you buy beans that is so clean, you don't see a single weevil, you should be wary of that kind of purchase and wash it carefully before you start eating. Okay, but it is not safe at all. Ikure. So what do you have to say about the idea of government approving refuse dump sites? Well, like I said, we did a pilot project here in Makodi, but it was never allowed to take off. And I said it was due to lack of political will on one hand, and probably due to poor information dissemination. And that's what made that project to collapse. The idea was to have disposal sites that were managed professionally so that you bring in the waste, there will be a sorting area. In fact, the project had a component that we train or rather educate our population to start separating their waste at source so that what comes into the facility, each waste type goes to the appropriate section for professional management, but it never took hold. This is happening in other parts of the world, and I think Nigeria is mature enough to be doing a thing like that. Somebody says no sound. Am I muted? I hope I'm not. Onaji or China Juliet. You can't hear me. Who else? Can you hear me generally? Okay, we can hear. Thank you. All right, I think we can go on so that these people calling me will attend to them as well. We just thought that we should mention this as well. Ozone layer depletion. You know, some people will say Nigeria is industrialized. Others say Nigeria is rapidly industrializing. I belong to this last group. But we know that one study reported in the past that Nigeria has over 123 gas flaring sites, making her one of the highest emitters of greenhouse gases in Africa. And this is due likely to our vibrant oil and gas industry. As we shall see, government is taking measures to minimize this to the barest minimum. According to the World Bank, Nigeria accounts for roughly 1/6 of world gas flaring. That is big. But we also know that because of this ozone depletion, it has affected our climate patterns as well. This is not a singular cause and effect thing, but it's also part of our challenge. Okay, we know that people in the north, where ordinarily rainfall is usually less compared to the middle belt and southern part of the country, it is even getting worse. I also told you that uncontrolled logging is aiding deforestation. These are some of the consequences of what is happening. Our gas flaring is contributing to greenhouse gas emissions, which are also contributing to the ozone layer depletion problem. All over the country, we're all feeling this. Okay? But from January 2023, our federal government banned all substances that are not ozone friendly in accordance with the Montreal Protocol Agreement of which Nigeria is signatory. Like I told you a couple of times in the course of these lectures, sometimes it is not the absence of regulations or laws, it is the enforcement that is our challenge. So some of you here who are working with regulatory agencies, we may need to step up what your agencies are doing to help our population. Well, so these are some of the initiatives that Nigeria is taking. Nigeria is actively pursuing climate action through various policies and strategies that are aimed at mitigating climate change impacts and promoting sustainable development in the country. We have the National Climate Change Policy and Response Strategy. I would advise you to, these are things you can find online, check this out and know the details. The long-term low emission development strategy, the energy transition plan, and the green bond program. The green bond program is an initiative to finance projects related to renewable energy, afforestation, and clean energy. This is clearly demonstrating Nigeria's commitment to sustainable development. These are initiatives that we need to commend our federal government on. And I know the government is receiving international support to carry through with some of these programs. Okay. Now, just to give us an update on how the general population views climate change in Nigeria. This was a study by Afrobarometer that did this poll, interviewing 1,600 people in March of 2022. About 30% of the people have heard of climate change. 23% agree that floods have become more severe over the past decade and they link that to climate change. 25% linked droughts and say they have been more severe over the past decade. And 66% said climate change is making life worse. Ordinary people can play a role in limiting climate change. 69% of the people surveyed said so, while 71% said government must take action now to limit climate change, even if it is expensive. Now, this shows how much dependent on government initiative our population feels. Okay, so generally, this data tells us that we are also participants and we must also contribute to the solution. You know, if 69% of the people felt that ordinary people can play a role in limiting climate change, and I agree with them. And I believe in this class we should agree with that. You see the question as to which stakeholders need to do a lot more. Again, people are placing it at the feet of government. And sometimes we think that is our problem in Nigeria. When everything we think government, at the end of the day, we start asking who is government indeed. We find that only 58% feel ordinary citizens can do a lot more. But by now, I'm sure you agree that ordinary people can also do a lot more to contribute to the reduction in the climate change impact. And so, of course, some of us in developed countries should also do a lot more. But by and large, government, developed countries, business and industry and ordinary citizens working together can do a lot more to help climate change, reduce the impact, promote climate resilience in Nigeria. So for today, I'm going to leave you with this question, and I would like for you to take your time, not just gloss over it, and in writing, write what you consider to be the most pressing environmental issues that are facing Nigeria today and why you think so. I'll be expecting you to do this in no more than 3 A4 pages, and you can send it to my email box. I have also here a link, and I'm going to send this to you today. I will request you to take the course on ESF fundamentals, environmental and social framework fundamentals of the World Bank and others. You'll be glad you will do it. And let me say this. If subsequently I find that you are not taking this assignment seriously, I just say them, you think I'm just talking casually, you will be surprised. Maybe one of your exam questions will be to submit your ESF fundamentals certificate. And that alone will form the basis of the rest of your exam. It will be a compulsory question. I'm not saying it will be, but it could be. Okay, I hope you are listening to me. So for those who are taking this course only because they want to write exam, this is the only expo you are getting. So you take your pen, answer this question, disposer, and also take the trouble to take the ESF fundamentals and get the certificate. For today, that's where I will stop. We'll continue tomorrow. I need to attend to the other issue as well. Thank you. Questions, comments? If I'm already taking the course, fine. No wahala. All I want people to do it. That's who is asking this now? Agba Ben, if you are taking it, that's good. Eze Emmanuel, you say you don't understand the assignment. Please, there's a poser there. What do you consider to be the most important environmental issues facing Nigeria? And why do you think so? Do it in writing. 2, 3 pages. Don't go and start writing a thesis for me. Send it to my mailbox. Any other? Sir, please, sir, government is safe shares polythene for waste disposal. You see, Sir James, that is why we say that sometimes this is a challenge we have. Government will say one thing and do another. If you can't reuse it, refuse it. I like that. I said we should all be champions for the environment. Ruben, I guess you mean there, THERE. There has been a lot of loss of some species of grass that have cultural values, e.g. this, I guess that's spear grass, which is traditionally used as building material for roofing. Well, these are some of the things we are talking about. So here you are at the level of research. Ruben, you will help us find out why this has happened and tell us what we can do to change the situation. Some people buy pesticides and start pest control business without training on how to mix, apply, and use for protective. They end up putting themselves up. I agree with you absolutely, Jessica Dazan. But again, this is where regulation becomes important as one of the 7 R's in the waste management, but I can also tell you in managing hazardous materials. Okay, so I agree with you. We need to have people who are competent doing this business, and it is regulation that can help us. Years back here in Makodi, we did a workshop. We went around spreading the message, but it's really difficult to have people change so easily. All right, if there are no questions and other comments, I will join the other meeting that I'm supposed to be participating in a short while. So some of us will love to take it, but right time, we are short of time. Can we do it at the end of the semester? Yeah, you don't have to do it all in one night. Just once you start it, you discover that you put in short time, you'll be able to finish it. It's not a big deal. Just do your best. The ESF fundamental course. I think you will find it interesting. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing here. We'll continue from we'll take sustainable community health and safety in development from tomorrow. And by the time we're done with that, I would have done with you in my own segment. Thank you. All right. Thank you.